One of our goals at the Sonoma Speed Festival was to create a venue where great collectors could bring their amazing cars. Today we are standing in Tom Price's garage with one of the rarest cars in the world, 1963 Ferrari GTO. Only 36 were made. The value, the experience, the technology in the day is so extraordinary. V12 engine, dollar-sized pistons, creating a high revving car. And what's amazing is that Tom brings this car to the track and occasionally he lets me race it. One of our goals is to make sure that we have a venue where our guests can see, hear, and smell these amazing cars, see them on track, see them at speed, and see what they were built for. Regrettably, we were unable to bring these amazing cars together in 2020. During the pandemic, it's been a great opportunity to showcase cars virtually, but next year we look forward to having you all come and visit us at the Sonoma Raceway in May. Without further ado, pull up a chair. We're going to show you all many of the races that occurred at last year's Sonoma Speed Festival. So sit back, relax, have a glass of wine, and we look forward to seeing you next year and we can pour you a glass of wine in person.
So then, on the warm-up lap for the 1966 to 1985 Masters Historic Formula One, all 3 litres. And as they move on their warm-up lap, field is led in pole position by Stephen Romack in the Tyrrell 1985, Martin Lauber in the March alongside him, then Greg Thornton in the Lotus, and Nicholas Colivas. Bud Moeller of Texas in the Ensign and Chris Locke are on row 3. Then on row 4, it's Ron Maiden and Chris Bender in the Arrow, Steve Cook in the March. Dalmo de Vasconcelos is also on row 5, and Beaumont Charles Warner on row 6. And at the back, Danny Baker in the McLaren M23 and James Hargan in the Tyrrell 01. It's going to be interesting to see them come through from the back as we head now to our rolling start.
What a beautiful sound. Here we go, across the line, the green flag waves, and away we go. Formula One in action here at Sonoma. And just as we did yesterday, the Tyrrell straight off and running. Stephen Romack at the wheel of the number 43 Tyrrell. He won the race yesterday. Followed by Greg Thornton and Nicholas Colivas. And Thornton in that Lotus 82, the JPS coloured black and silver. There it is. And then the Jägermeister-sponsored car of Martin Lauber is the number 9. In fact, well, I've got 2 number 9s down here, so we'll see who's actually driving it. But I've got Andrew Walt in the March 741. But either way, no disputing who's at the front, but it is Greg Thornton who's just got into 2nd place in that Lotus. And he said he was exhausted. He said this is a really demanding circuit for one of these cars, and I can imagine it would be. Usually historic races are run not at flat circuits, but at circuits that don't demand quite as much from these older cars. And as you can see, they're not holding back. Greg Thornton, an FIA historic world champion in his own right, looking to put some pressure on here and put a race together as they cross the line again. The first lap of 1:35.1, and in fact, Greg Thornton at 1:34.8, so not holding back at all. And this is a glorious sight. Martin Lauber in the number 9 in 3rd place, ahead of Nicholas Colavas. Bud Mola in 5th, the man from Texas. Bud driving the Ensign, the MN 179. Just to give you a little bit of background, the car you're looking at right now was the Tyrrell 012-6, built in 1985 and used in the 85 season. Tyrrell was the last and only team to still run the Cosworth DFV Ford engine in 1985. And the car was raced by Martin Brundle, and of course American fans will know that Martin Brundle's still very much involved in racing. His son's racing too, but of course he now commentates for Sky Sports. And so this was one of Martin's early cars. Brundle, one of the most accomplished drivers Britain's produced. And here comes Thornton. And he's looking at it, putting a race on, onto the dirt and dust he goes. Now he goes high and wide, but that Lotus did a really good job. And I think Mr. Romack has got his work cut out today, because Thornton clearly means business. And we're right behind him all the way. And this is an ex-Elio De Angela's car in 2nd place. Elio De Angela's one of the greats to watch, of course, back in the day. Carbon composite monocoque, and driven by Elio in 1982 in the British, French and German Grand Prix. And like I said, 3 litres, these cars, 8-cylinder, 180 miles an hour top speed. Certainly in the Lotus's case, about 500 brake horsepower. So quite a handful, you'd have to say. Now, let's have a look further back down to this group. And we've got some really, really beautiful cars out here from the period. That's the number 29 of Chris Bender. And still his battle at the front continues. Just trying to look at what the history is on Chris's car, Chris Bendick's car. Across the line they come then, in a great sprint race here for Formula One. And let's look at the times, 1:31.3. They're not holding back at all. Great to see. And I had a feeling that this would be a good race, and it was yesterday as well. These two just going at it the whole race long. Thornton really putting the car through its paces. Ron Maiden a little further down in the 51. He's got a 77. Chris Bender was in the Arrows. That's what I was looking at, the 1983 Arrows. So here they come, and if they're not careful, they're going to start catching up with back markers. Danny Baker's in this group as well. Or in this field as well, I should say, in 7th position in the number 30. when Lotus were not on top of their powers per se, but not far off. And of course, Lotus now has split, gone in different directions, but effectively, the car you see that Renault are running now was the forerunner to Lotus F1 team. And of course, the colours now back in Formula One with Haas in their high energy with that black and gold. So a lot of people have compared the classic JPS colours that you're looking at now, leading the way. Greg Thornton now in the lead. John Player Special, I used to remember Emerson Fittipaldi, even Mario Andretti driving in these colours. Now, I mentioned Greg Thornton, he came up and visited me yesterday, but Katie spoke up with him this morning, and Katie found out a little bit more about Greg Thornton in his car.
All right, I'm here with Gregory Thornton, driving the 82 Lotus 91.5, and Gregory, we were just talking to Steve. You two were cutting it really close in the race on Saturday. What is going to be the result today?
The result is I must try harder. It's as simple. The guy is a brilliant driver, a really nice guy. We raced together in Japan last year. This is his home track. So as anybody who's even walked this track knows, the home advantage is a long way ahead. He's got everything going for him, except he's got me behind him, so I'm going to give him a hard time today.
Some of the viewers that maybe didn't catch the race on Saturday, tell us about it. I mean, how close was it?
It was close. The guy puts the car in his mind in exactly the right place, in my mind exactly the wrong place, every time I'm trying to get past him, which is brilliant. He handles his car amazingly well, and this track is all about faith. Most of the corners, you can't see what's the other side. So you have to remember and have faith that you've got it right at 150 miles an hour.
Now you have a special number 12 over here that other F1s maybe don't have. Tell us a little bit more about your car.
You know, I'm very, very lucky. This is the car that actually won the Grand Prix, driven by Elio De Angelis in Austria in 1982. He beat Keke Rosberg driving a Williams by the closest ever finish in a Grand Prix, less than half a second after 2 hours of fighting.
I gotta ask, the mouse on the top of your seat, is that for good luck?
Yeah, that mouse was white when she started her life. She's gone a bit grey. Now she's been everywhere. She's traveled the globe, and she's our good luck little Minnie Mouse.
Well, Gregory, good luck out there. I hope your mouse serves you well, and I hope you do well and have fun this weekend.
Thank you very much.
He's a great character, no question about it. Greg Thornton, and now leading the way. He doesn't have to chase anymore. He might be beating Stephen Romack at the moment on his home track, but he's doing a really good job of laying down some really quick laps. He's just done, I may add, a 129.8. So he has upped the pace. So has Stephen Romack. He did a 130.9. So these two are really putting in some laps. There's some almost 12 seconds ahead of third place Martin Lauber. This is a really, really good display of racing, and Greg Thornton is showing his ability for sure. As we take a look at some of the other cars a little further down. This is Danny Baker now. Danny Baker pre-race was one of my favorites to go really well here, and he's going really well, but I thought he'd be further up the field. He's driving the McLaren M23, which is before the race weekend. They said, oh, that's going to be a quick car. And Katie caught up with Danny earlier today to talk about this beautiful car.
We're with Danny Baker, the driver of the 1976 McLaren M23, and man, that thing is fast. I want to know, yesterday and the day before, you've been taking this around the track already. How was that car to handle out there?
This car is, I mean, it's awesome. Right, the Formula One cars are great. We got 500 horsepower. We got some downforce, even though it's 76 downforce, but it's still awesome. This particular car is an absolute beast. It's got a super wide stance to it, so I feel like I need to go back to the gym every time I get out of it, because after 4 or 5 laps, I'm like, oh shit, it's working me pretty good. The Atlantic car, I feel like I'm on the front of it driving it. This car, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit behind it trying to catch up to it. So I like getting more time in it so I can hopefully get ahead of it, toss it around a little bit, make it do what it's supposed to do.
We've talked to some of the other guys, other drivers in this F1 group, and we know it's all about fun this weekend, but you guys get a little bit competitive out there.
I don't even think it's a question. We've got guys that have won Daytona and won Le Mans, that were SCCA national champions, that we've got guys that we have the most fun going out and racing. And these are, I mean, they're pieces. We don't want to hurt them, and we especially don't want to hurt each other, but we want these cars to be raced, and that's where we have our best time. And it's at this level, and even when we get in more competitive things, you know, first guy out of the car goes handing your buddy your beer, and you talk about your great race, and it's just awesome. Like, my love for the cars and my love for the people is just what it's all about.
All right, Mr. Baker, well, have fun out there in car number 30 this weekend.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
And here he is. It competed in some 30 Grand Prix events spanning 3+ years. And look at this, another good battle going on here as they come out of the last corner. And that's the number 17 of Charles Warner. Warner just behind. Warner in the shadow, DN9, and that's the number 76 ahead of him. That's Andrew Beaumont in the Lotus 74. Similar colors, of course, with the JPS logos, and Chesterfield, JPS, all cigarette companies in the day. No more cigarette companies. Look at that double wing on that too. Interesting innovation. Lotus were one of the best when it comes to innovations. And that's another beautiful, beautiful car. And they're maintained by Lotus. In fact, effectively a Lotus historic team. They have their own, I would call it factory, but it pretty much is a factory, and it's actually run by Colin Chapman's son. Colin Chapman, of course, the founder of Lotus Racing, and one of the great innovators and designers, and one of the real main drivers in the early days of Formula One. If Ross Brawn was one in his day and now is running motorsport at the F1 level, certainly Colin Chapman. And likes of Adrian Newey now, who follow him, are the movers and shakers behind what we all seem to remember, which is the drivers. But the likes of Colin, the likes of Adrian Newey, you've got a lot to thank for the wonderful cars that you see, both of yesteryear and, of course, now in modern Formula One. People forget that Ross Brawn was involved in the Mercedes effort early on. Now he's the head of motorsport for all of Formula One. He's a world champion in his own car, effectively, with Brawn. One with Jenson Button in that one-off season where Brawn again came out with an innovative design that no one else had really got their head around, and they wiped the floor with everyone. Jenson Button taking his one and only world championship. There's Nicholas Colivas in 4th position there in the elf colored number 3 Tyrrell, 007 Tyrrell. Made its debut with Jody Scheckter at the wheel. Now, Jody Scheckter, the great South African racing driver, finished 5th in the Spanish Grand Prix where it made its debut. And here comes the number 10 of Steve Cook. Steve Cook driving the March 721G. And in fact, Steve Cook's another man we spoke to about this lovely 1972 March. Here's Kate.
Steve, you're driving a 1972. This is the oldest car out of the F1s, but you still managed to finish 8th yesterday.
Yeah, finished in the middle of the group. You know, we've been working on the car for a while, adapting it to this racetrack, and we made some changes yesterday and again this morning and last night. We're hoping for a little better, but it is kind of fun to chase the other guys down in the better car, so it's... I wish we had some more of the old cars out again, because they're all different and goofy looking. So,
now, with this older car, what's probably the hardest thing that, you know, viewers wouldn't know how it is to drive?
The hardest part of this car is it has really terrible aerodynamic wings and downforce. The wing is really low and short to the car, It's not really in the wind like some of the later McLarens are, so it doesn't have the aero downforce. And they made it really short to be nimble, so it's really nervous.
Right, now I've talked to all your other buddies in this F1 group. They've all said they're going to be competitive. How are you planning to be out there today?
I'm expecting to be better than we were yesterday. We think either changes we made are on the same line as yesterday, so we either made another little incremental step or we made it worse, and then we'll go the other way next time. But it's all an experiment trying to adapt. I think the track was better yesterday because it was a little sunnier out, so I don't know if people are all going to improve. We'll see.
Well, Steve, be competitive, most importantly, have fun this weekend.
All fun. Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about the wings on both the front and the rear there, and they're somewhat rudimentary. And when you'll see the Formula One car of 2016, you'll see how that has evolved. But that's the point. These were the pioneers of the wings and getting downforce, and this is the battle we're watching for 7th place. So what you're looking at here is how Formula One evolved into trying to get more downforce, trying to get more mechanical grip from each and every car that they developed. And at times they got it right, at times they got it wrong, but that's the point, is that Formula One, just like any sport, developed, and the designers just kept on designing and trying to find ways of improving the downforce. And of course the rules would change too, as they do still into this modern day. As we look at Ron Maiden, who we mentioned earlier, is responsible for putting all these cars together here and to run in the USA. And they do run. I was listening to the schedule yesterday of these cars, and they really do. They race at Road America, they race at Indianapolis. They'll also be racing these cars at the Formula One event in November. So if you are at the Circuit of the Americas watching the modern day Formula One race, you'll see these guys in action on the undercard, and it really is quite a thrill to compare them. And what you'll notice if you do go to that race is that the Formula One technicians, engineers, the likes of Adrian Newey and the team managers, Matteo Binotto from Ferrari, will be watching very carefully. They love to watch the history of these cars and see, you know, there's always ideas to be got from those of yesteryear. And like I said, while these cars effectively now in comparison were rudimentary, there's no question that at the time they were right on these cars were right on the cutting edge of experimentation with ground effects, with downforce, and with trying to create as much power to weight and mechanical grip around the corners as they could, and also get those big tires to put as much power down without getting sideways completely. Well, that happened too. And a good view of Danny Baker enjoying it. But like he says, it's a very physical. I take my hat off now to the likes of Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve and many of them all. They probably were fitter than we gave them credit for. It's always good to see James Hunt jumping out of his 70s McLaren and having a cigarette, but if he's bustling one of those round, or he was in the day, or Mario Andretti for that matter, then they were doing a pretty good job physically. And as Danny was saying, you know, when you're doing 150 miles an hour in this, you know about it. And that 72 March we were just talking about, Danny was driving. Was in the 1972 World Championship, both in the 721 and the 721X, but not the most successful. Ronnie Peterson, Nicky Lauda. It's worth mentioning, given that we've got a car that Nicky did drive, that we say farewell to the great Nicky Lauda, three-time world champion, who had such an amazing career. And if you want to learn about motor racing, go and watch the film Rush, because you'll get a real insight into both Nicky Lauda's career, but also into these sorts of cars and what it took to drive them. And Ron Howard did a brilliant job, I think, of portraying motorsport, which has never been easy to do. There's been about 3, maybe 4 good movies, including the Grand Prix movie, the Le Mans movie. In fact, you'll see a car from the 66, or from the early 70s, 917 coming up later. But yeah, go and check out that movie. And a lovely conversation with Mario Andretti recently about that movie. Because it's all about Niki Lauda's battle with James Hunt for the 1976 world title. In the middle of it, the race finishes, and it's all about the world championship and who would win it. And Mario says, I never got mentioned. I won the race. Lovely character. And still driving, I may add, doing the two-seaters at the Indy 500 and many of the other. He'll be there in Detroit this weekend, I'm sure. Around Belle Isle, that's where Indy are this weekend. So Steve Cook, currently in 10th position, pushing that march as hard as he dare. Beautiful, beautiful sound. We'll hear the modern-day Formula One hybrid sound soon, but I still don't think it compares to the roar of these beautiful cars. And look at the oversteer he's getting, how he's fighting that car, Stephen Romac. But he can't catch the Lotus at the moment. He leads the way, and he's getting into traffic now. So if Romac's going to have a chance of catching him, it's going to be now. And he's making short work of making his way through that traffic. And Thornton's on a mission, isn't he? Determined to take a win this weekend. And as you heard from him earlier, he's raced against Stephen before in Japan. So these guys race all over the world with a very, very busy schedule. So these cars are hardly on the shelf or in a museum at any time. They're racing full on, and I think it's great and inspiring to see this moving history. We heard Lynn St. James talking earlier about the RPM Institute effectively trying to get young engineers and get people interested in this, the older cars and the simple engineering, or more simple engineering than the current cars, and get people to understand and work on these sorts of cars, because it is a moving history and long may it continue. I think if we can keep these sorts of cars running for the next 30 or so years, I think it'll be a real accolade. And there's the checkered flag then for Greg Thornton. He wins the 3-litre Formula One Historics here at Sonoma. A great job done by him. And Stephen Romac taking second place in the Tyrrell. And yes, a little bit of a wave of congratulations. But I think Greg will be full of it after that. Here comes the number 3, Nicholas Colivas in the Tyrrell in 4th position. He'll cross the line there, just ahead of Bud Mola and James Hagen in 6th position. Ron Maiden looks as though he's going to finish in 7th. And here they come. A little moment there for... Oh, I say a little moment, he's going to have another go. Martin Lauber thought about it. And I thought he was going to lose it there on the turn 10 corner, but he didn't. And he'll need a Jägermeister after that. Nicely done. So, Nicholas Colivas does finish 3rd place ahead of Martin Lauber. It was a good little battle between them.
Confirmation then of the results of Group 4 in the Sonoma Speed Festival. Greg Thornton in the Lotus wins ahead of the poleman, Steve Romac in the Tyrrell, and also in the Tyrrell, Nicholas Colivas is 3rd as we look back at some of the action. And here's a look at the highlights there. Off went the Tyrrell into the distance early on, but Greg Thornton started about, 3rd, and then slowly made his way through and eventually would make his way through all the way to the top. We had some good battles throughout, but here was the sort of key moment into 11. A nice turn back, a switch back, and the following lap into the lead he went. And after he got that lead, Greg Thornton didn't look back, and it was a really, really good race by the Brit, Greg Thornton, a former FIA historic Formula One world champion, and showing why. There you go. Checkered flag then. And the sun's starting to come out here at Sonoma Raceway as we celebrate more great racing.